Part 9. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Aishang. Chapter 81. Did he stop him? Looks like he's still unscathed. How is it possible that he is just a LV1? After Yayu blocked Riveria's attack without any damage, a series of disbelieving sounds rang out. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at this absolutely impossible scene in front of them. The gap between LV1 and LV6 was simply heaven and earth. When everyone thought that this would be a battle without any suspense, Yayu used the fact to slap them all hard. With LV1 strength, he took the attack from LV6 Riveria without changing his expression, although the series of attacks might just be a test. However, the power caused by the mere temptation left everyone speechless. They couldn't help but sigh that the 9 demons Riveria was worthy of being the most powerful magician in Orario, and she was extraordinary when she took action. The noise and surprise of the audience outside the stadium could not be heard at all. It was obvious that Yayu was not in the mood to listen now. Now his attention was focused on an even stranger thing. Riveria's attack just now was indeed nothing. It was a method Riveria was accustomed to using during so many days of teaching courses. A normal magic class and sparring between two people would start with Riveria's series of magic attacks. It's just that sometimes the series of magic is fire, sometimes it's thunder and lightning, and sometimes it's just wind blades. What makes Yayu curious and strange is his own magic wand that looks like a fire stick. Just now, all the fire magic cast by Riveria was absorbed by this humble fire stick. It was almost greedy devouring, which shocked Yayu. Yayu has also been studying this strange staff for a while, but there has been no progress. The only thing that can be known is that this staff-like stick has an incredible affinity for magic. Use it to cast spells. It will get twice the result with half the effort. It was the first time for Yayu to see the staff, which usually had no problem no matter how it conveyed magic power, swallowing up magic power so greedily. Wait a minute, could it be because of the magical properties? It seems like this staff is only interested in fire-based magic. While Yayu was thinking this, Riveria, who had finished her probing attack on the other side, did not dare to be careless. She seemed to condense her magic power to form a fire barrier in front of her, and then started to use her magic power again to chant complex magic. Bites come. This is the reason why elves have a better understanding of magic than humans, which is the compression and refinement of magic. Spells that seemed cumbersome and complicated to chant using human common language could be completed using elven text in just a few bytes. This has caused the elves to far exceed other races in both their magic power condensation speed and spell casting speed. This is a talent that is unmatched by any other race. Even though other races can now master the power of magic through the power of contracts, there is still no way to compare with the real wizards of the elves. It is not easy for them to master one or two magics, but the elves, such as Riveria, master the entire series of magics. The elegant and melodious elvish language was condensed in a moment, and soon Yayu felt a burning breath coming from the ground under his feet. This magic Yayu is also very familiar with, because it is also one of the spells that Riveria likes to use to attack. Flame Blast gathers the flame elements at the target's feet, and then bursts out of the spell instantly. There is a delay time of about 0.5 to 1 second from the successful casting of the spell to the time it takes effect. Under normal circumstances, if you have strong enough reflex nerves, this time is enough to avoid the blow of the pillar of fire. For example, if the person fighting Riveria is Ace, she can seize this short reaction time to dodge the opponent's attack and seize the opportunity to counterattack. Yayu obviously didn't have the skills like Riveria, and he couldn't avoid the pillar of fire that was about to burst out. In fact, his physical shortcomings had not changed until now. However, he chose a simpler and more violent method to contain Riveria's attack. Yayu stomped his foot on the ground, and a burst of white frost spread under his feet, freezing the entire arena. The half-released magic was suppressed abruptly. Riveria suddenly felt a surge of energy and blood, and the magic power in her body was also unstable. This magic power reserve is really unfathomable. Reveria smiled helplessly. In this brief confrontation, she was completely suppressed in terms of her magic power reserves. The girl's only advantage in this contest is her understanding of magic and her mastery of numerous magic spells. After the flame blast failed to be cast, Reveria chanted another magic spell without hesitation. However, although Reveria's magic is fast, it still requires a short chant, but Yayu's magic does not. Without any movement, Yayu just raised his head and stretched out one hand towards Reveria, who was suspended in the air. In an instant, it was like a huge whirlpool appeared in the mid-air. Reveria didn't even have time to understand what was going on. She involuntarily fell in the direction of Yayu, even while chanting half of the spell. Also interrupted. This is a magic vortex. Reveria was suddenly startled and quickly activated her magic power to fight against this terrifying force. It's a pity that Reveria's magic power was suppressed by an even greater magic power just as it was activated. Then Reveria was surprised to find that the magical power she was so proud of was simply useless at this moment. It was like a child, unable to compete with that amazing magic power. How is this possible? Although I know from those days of sparring that Yayu's magic power is unfathomable, isn't this crushing gap too big? Reveria suddenly realized that the fight was no longer possible. Yayu was clearly bullying others, so how could she fight? You must know that magic power is everything to a mage, and now Yayu has enough magic power to condense a vortex and pull his body, so how can we fight this battle? Reveria originally thought that the magic power between herself and Yayu was just the difference between a water cup and a water bowl, but now the girl realized that Yayu is not a water bowl, he is a vast ocean. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 82. Although she suffered a big blow, Reveria did not give up. She simply relaxed her body and stopped resisting, letting the force of pulling bring her closer to Yayu. At first glance, it looked like she was throwing herself into Yayu's arms, but when she was close to Yayu, the magic power all over her body exploded instantly. Great pyroblast. Fierce flames burst out from Reveria's body, engulfing the entire arena in an instant. What fell in the eyes of the audience was nothing but dazzling red flames. This was a real ultra-close range spell, and even Reveria herself was involved in it. Although he is said to be the releaser of spells, the shock caused by this distance is not something that a weak mage can withstand. No matter how powerful Reveria is, she is only a mage, and her physical fitness is completely incomparable to that of Ace and the others. Everyone held their breath. Although the two mages only fought for a few short times, anyone who was not an idiot could see that Reveria was at a disadvantage. In a battle between mages, keeping a distance is always the most important prerequisite. From the moment Reveria was forced to get closer to Yayu, she was already at a disadvantage. This mere LV1 adventurer is actually so strong. The famous 9-demon girl Reveria had to use a fighting method that would hurt both sides. It has to be said that Reveria was smart but was mistaken for her cleverness. If she had not confidently used fire magic to fight, any magic she had just used and released it against Yayu's body would probably have given Yayu a hard time. After all, although the mage's body is very weak, Reveria's physical fitness is enough to compete with LV3 warriors. As for Yayu's physical fitness, he is just like paper. For example, if Reveria uses the strong wind technique that can split mountains and rocks on the spot, although it may not be able to cause any damage to Yayu who is covered with a magic shield, it is estimated that he can be blown away before Yayu can react. After all, Yayu is just squandering his magic power like a nouveau riche, and his actual magic power utilization efficiency and attack and defense methods are not many. But Yayu is growing, and growing at an extremely fast rate. Born with a powerful treasure trove of magic power, all he lacked was the theory and knowledge of magic. Then through practice, Yayu could easily become a powerful mage beyond Reveria. The flickering flames and smoke slowly dissipated, and the pungent smell of sulfur was still lingering on the tip of her nose. Riveria's expression looked a little dazed. I didn't feel any discomfort or pain in my body, and the pyroblast technique that was supposed to explode seemed to have disappeared in such an incredible way. I have to say that it was really a big mistake for you to choose to use fire magic to fight me. Leaning close to Riveria's ear, Yayu chuckled and said. Why? Riveria was stunned for a moment, and before she could react, she felt her wrists being pinched by Yayu. Immediately, a cold magic power poured into her body, causing Riveria's body to tremble slightly. No. Don't, it's so weird. When someone else's magic invaded the body, it felt as if the entire body did not belong to oneself and fell into the hands of others for anyone to play with. Riveria immediately twisted her body in discomfort. In particular, Yayu's magic power also had a strange cold feeling, which made Riveria feel strange, and at the same time, her whole body began to convulse involuntarily. This is in front of the entire residence of Orario and the gods. I beg you, can you restrain yourself a little? But it was obvious that Yayu never knew what restraint was. Just as Riveria was thinking this, the man's face left her shoulder and moved towards her face. Riveria, whose magic power was completely imprisoned, could only let out a lovely cry, and was immediately kissed by Yayuki-ang like she had done many times before. Fortunately, Yayu knew how to measure after all. After the smoke completely dissipated and the audience's vision returned to clarity, he slowly pushed Riveria away. I agree, Miss Riveria. Riveria, who was still in a daze, shook her head, and her face turned red and lowered her head slowly, not daring to look into Yayu's eyes. She didn't know if anyone had seen the way she was with Yayu just now. The girl played with her hands and spoke slowly in a low and inaudible voice. Admit, you won. After saying these words, Riveria retreated from the ring, leaving a large confused audience behind. So what exactly happened? Why was the winner suddenly decided? And it's not good for you to act like you're in love just after the winner is decided, isn't it? The audience present did not know what had just happened, but the gods watching the battle on the 30th floor of the Tower of Babel could see it clearly. But now these gloating gods were laughing at Loki's joke. Why are you laughing? Riveria is indeed inferior to others in skills. What's so funny? Loki yelled, unconvinced. She could certainly afford to lose, but she was really annoyed by the laughter of these guys. You bastards, do you think my Loki familia's jokes are funny? Or do you think my Loki familias are easy to bully? Do you want to compete again after this war game is over? After Loki said these words that contained resentment towards you, the hall suddenly became quiet. Are you kidding me? Although the strength of the gods present is not weak, no one is willing to fight to the death with the Loki familia. Little dwarf, don't be complacent, the next one is Isai-chan, your kid won't have such good luck right now. I'm not proud. Hestia murmured quietly, it was strange that she was so happy. Ugh, damn it, I really want to be molested by Yayu in front of everyone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai. Chapter 83. How Riveria lost may be a bit baffling to the surrounding audience, but the only ones who really know what happened are probably the high gods. It was a pure crushing of power. Yayu's magic power was stronger than Riveria's, and it was much stronger. It could be said that the winner of this contest had already been decided from the beginning. Leave it to you, Ace. Riveria came down from the ring with a faint blush on her pretty face. She looked at Ace, lowered her head and spoke softly. I've been looking forward to this moment for a long time. Isai said eagerly, her excitement couldn't be concealed in her words. An upright battle with Yamidane was something she had been looking forward to for a long time. But what the girl didn't expect was that the two of them would fight in such a way, in such a place, and with such a stance. Whether it was to untie the knot in her heart or for the glory of the Loki family, Ace Wallenstein would not allow herself to lose here. This time, it's not an ordinary drill or training, Jun. Ah, please be merciful. Looking at Isai, who was extremely serious and exuding strong fighting spirit, you still felt a bit of pressure. Unlike Reveria, Ace is a swordsman, an extremely powerful swordsman who is known for her speed. The battle between the swordsman and the magician is sometimes just such a short moment. After Yayu finished speaking, Isai started to move. In an instant, the figure of the lost girl appeared in Yayu's eyes. The wind blew by his ears, bringing a sharp tearing sound. Yayu involuntarily moved his neck in the opposite direction, and soon found a slender long sword in the solidified frost through his peripheral vision. "You're so merciless. You just believe that I can stop him." A bitter smile appeared on the corner of Yayu's mouth, and the sword was aimed directly at his neck. If it hadn't been for this instinctive reaction, he might have been stabbed through the neck and died on the spot. Isai's delicate face also became clear in front of Yayu. The girl shrugged her nose cutely and then spoke slowly. "If you can't resist, I will deflect the sword at the last moment." "That's right, but in order to repay you for the surprise you gave me, then I'll give you a surprise too." As Yayu said this, a smile appeared on his face. Although Isai sensed something was wrong and wanted to pull away, it was obviously too late. Under normal circumstances, in a battle between a magician and a swordsman, if the former is approached by the latter, it would be a very disadvantageous thing. The magician's release always takes time to chant, and these short few seconds are enough for the swordsman to kill the mage countless times. But Ace, who has been fighting with Reveria for so long, can be said to be familiar with the fighting methods of mages. She knows that in order to prevent such things from happening, every mage will master a simple and crude method. That is a close-range burst of magic power. In just a short moment, the magic power in one's body is pushed out without any guidance in any way. This is the magic power explosion. The explosive power at that moment is no less than that of casting a spell at close range. However, what is different from casting a spell at close range is that you can add a shield to yourself before casting a spell, and the spell you cast is also released from your hands. But the magic burst is different. The magic burst is not equal to casting a spell, but the magic power in one's body is sprayed out from every pore of one's body, producing huge destructive power in an instant. It can even be said bluntly that this is completely a suicide attack. However, I have to say that at certain critical moments, such a desperate attempt is very effective. As for Yayu, he himself has not mastered any correct method of casting spells, or it can be said that every time he mobilizes his power, he is forcing a magic burst. Using rough methods, he forcibly releases the magic power from his body, and then turns it into power. She wanted to pull away, but the next moment, Ace felt a strange sense of sluggishness, and even her thinking began to slow down. The girl's eyes were shrouded in a burst of pure white mist, and at the same time, biting frost followed closely. Here it comes again, this feeling of despair and powerlessness. Isai couldn't help but recall everything that happened when she met Yayu for the first time. At that time, it was the same as now. Faced with the sudden horror, Isai was frozen without any resistance. But this time is different. This time I am standing here as LV6, how could I be defeated by this frost again? The wind picked up, in the almost solid air. Yayu, who originally had a confident look on his face, fluctuated slightly. His magic was actually shaken? This is the first time Yayu has had his magic shaken by someone head-on since he came to this world. The huge and terrifying magic power was compressed to the extreme, and then exploded violently. There was still a slight wind and waves at first, and then the wind blew more and more fiercely. In the end, the strong wind shattered all the ice that restricted Aisai's movement. Crystal powder was scattered in the air, and under the strong wind, Aisai's skirt and long golden hair danced with the wind. The girl stood in the air, looking down at Yayu like a battlefield valkyrie. With her own strength, she broke through the blockade of Yayu's frost power and solved the shadows and knots that were once buried in her heart. Now Aisai has truly reached her strongest state since she was promoted to LV6. Thank you Yayu, but for the glory of Loki's family, I must defeat you next. Ace, who was suspended in mid-air, said so ruthlessly. But just when Yayu touched the tip of his nose and smiled bitterly, Aisai winked at him playfully and continued to add. Of course, I won't sit idly by and do nothing about you and Sister Reveria. I will help you to elope when the time comes, right? On the Tower of Babel, Loki, who was elated because of Ace's condition, almost spat out a mouthful of blood because of the second half of Ace's sentence before he could show off. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 84. If you turn your elbows outward like this, the main god of your family will be very sad when he hears it. Originally he still had a serious look on his face, but after hearing Aisai's words, Yayu showed a wry smile again. If she has a problem with it, I'll beat her up. Ace curled her lips and looked unconcerned. Yayu couldn't help but shook his head in amusement, lamenting the status of Loki, a poor god. I'm sorry, Ace. Not only for Reveria, but also for Hestia. I have a reason to win, and I have no intention of losing to a girl. Yayu shook his head, and the smile on his face slowly faded. Immediately following his words, the temperature around him that had risen once again dropped at an alarming rate. Although I feel a little disgusted, but I have to do this at times like this. Maybe Yayu could defeat Reveria through some trickery, but facing Aisai in this state, he really didn't have the slightest chance of winning. This body is really too weak. Although he doesn't know why his body is so weak, Yayu knows that this is definitely not the state his body should be in. I am very strong, really, really strong, so powerful that I can't describe it with words, and I can't understand it with my thoughts. Although that strength has been temporarily lost, but it has not completely disappeared. That was something Yayu shouldn't touch, something hidden deep in his soul, something shrouded in ice that seemed to condense time and space. A mysterious power, and a mysterious past. But now, none of this is important anymore. He needs power. He needs power extremely and urgently. The sorrow of the forgotten, the memories lost with death, the images from the depths of the soul that cannot be forgotten even after death. Torture, the memory of the forgotten, the most sincere waiting deep in the soul, give up, and enter rest. To sink in pain. What is it that even the forgotten cannot forget? The flesh and blood are engraved with pain and also bring strength. When only the soul is left, at least, I hope to feel the warm embrace. Death is not the end, there comes a time. He will return and bring destruction. Forgotten by whom? He asked this blankly in his heart, the suppository shrouded in ice and snow. Yayu's body underwent earth-shaking changes. His long, pitch-black hair actually gradually lost all color and turned deathly pale. Unclean frost spread from the man's feet, and the weird fire stick-like thing returned to Yayu's palm. Then, it was different from every time in the past. This time, the frost surrounding Yayu did not reveal any edge to the outside world, but slowly gathered in the palm of the master's hand, dedicating all the biting cold to himself. Owner. A moment later, the long sword made entirely of frost appeared in Yayu's palm. Come on, Aisai, I will defeat you in the area you are best at. The endless power of the elements. Terrible forbidden power. Yayu's slightly curled lips revealed a somewhat strange smile. Ace frowned slightly. She keenly felt something had changed on Yayu in front of her, but she couldn't determine what it was. But it is certain that such a change is very dangerous. It is as dangerous as a poisonous snake. This is not the power of ice and snow, but the power of frost. Among the gods, a certain god who knew the truth said so. What's the difference between ice and snow, and frost? Hestia was stunned for a moment, looking confused. Ice and snow are magic, and frost, it is a power that is exerted directly using one's own body as a carrier. The god opened his mouth to explain, paused slightly, and after confirming the eyes of the gods present on him, he spoke again. Although ice magic is rare, it is not special. Any normal magician can use it. For example, Riveria, her favorite spell seems to be ice magic, right? The Winter of Ecstasy Finbull is almost the same as that kid, the magic that unreasonably freezes a large area in front of you. Loki curled his lips and said this, and the god nodded and continued. Ice magic is not uncommon, but the power of frost is different. If I have to talk about it after the frost, it should be a certain kind of talent, a power inherited from the race. Oh, what race's inherited power is it? The gods asked curiously, and the god's expression became serious. The undead. Only undead creatures can possess the power of frost. The body of the living cannot contain this elemental power that can freeze even blood. Only the unclean undead can contain it. Are you kidding? How could Yayu be an undead? He is a human being. Even if he is not a human being, he is still alive. A living person with body temperature, heartbeat, and blood flowing. But soon, this god's view was refuted by Hestia. Well, I don't know about this. I'm just giving you a little knowledge. Anyway, the power he uses is definitely the power of frost. As for whether the power of frost is a patent for undead creatures, I'm afraid it's only the god of death or the god of Hades. Did you just find out? Well, of course, it would be easy for the blood descendants of death and Hades to use such power, right? When the god said this, the hall suddenly became quiet, because whether it was the god of death or the god of Hades in his mouth, they were both guys that gods did not want to see. There is Hades, the god of underworld, and Hela, the god of death. To be honest, the gods are not even willing to mention their names. Ha ha ha, how could they be the descendants of those two lunatics? It's impossible. They were driven back not long after they came down. One of the gods said with a smile, and the other gods also laughed and echoed. At first, the god of death and the god of Hades were idle all day long and wanted to cause massacre, but they were thrown back to the god realm by the alliance of gods. There's no telling what trouble will happen if the two of them continue to stay in the world. Well, instead of thinking about these messy things, let's continue watching the game. The situation of Miss S may not be very objective. The atmosphere gradually relaxed, and as one of the gods spoke, the gods focused their attention on the mirror again. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 85. The long sword made of ice was not as fragile as it looked. Feeling the pressure coming from above and the numbness of the tiger's mouth from the shock, Ace had a look of difficulty on her face. Isai was not a powerful swordsman, but her speed advantage was weakened by the frost that filled the air, and she had to go head-to-head with Yayu. Boom! After another head-to-head confrontation, Isai's body flew backwards. The girl gritted her teeth, and half of her body was covered with a thin layer of frost. As the battle continued, the situation on the field became increasingly unfavorable to Ace. The biting cold air filled every corner, and even the spectators who were watching the battle through the mirrors could not help but shiver. It's so terrible. The frost is so cold that you can't help but feel the stinging sensation even if you touch it with your sight, let alone being in it. What kind of world does Ace Wallenstein feel at this moment? After images of the thin body appeared in the air, Isai's body stabilized in the air and turned into a blurry phantom in an instant. The wind blew again. Although it seemed very difficult in this space where even the air was about to solidify, it still blew slowly. With this gust of wind, Isai's body turned into a sharp sword and charged towards Yayu again. However, at this moment, Yayu just raised the sharp sword made of ice in his hand towards Isai, who was sprinting over. Ice, Yayu said two words coldly with no expression on his face. The power of frost in his blood not only froze his body, but also chilled his emotions. The power of frost would seal away the extra thoughts in his mind until the battle was over. In this state, Yayu is as efficient as a humanoid fighting machine. The wind froze, and at the same time, the expression on Isai's face froze. Crack. Click. Ace's speed became slower and slower, and as the girl moved forward, pieces of broken ice fell to the ground. All the spectators watching the battle involuntarily clenched their fists, watching the sword girl's final swan song, whose expression gradually solidified. Bingshuang dragged a broken trajectory on the ring, and looked at the beautiful face Yayu gradually approaching, and laughed, just like a child. I'm sorry, Ace, but I have to win. Yayu slowly clenched his pale hands, and a surging power of ice burst out from his body. The ice began to spread from his feet. In an instant, the earth was frozen. In an instant, the entire arena became a world of ice and snow. Isai's movement stopped completely, the girl maintained her galloping posture and turned into an ice sculpture in front of Yayu. Approaching and quietly observing the girl's beauty, Yayu's palm slid down Isai's face, and the next second the frost shattered again. Ace fell to the ground with tears in her eyes, and the famous swordswoman shivered like a little girl. Yayu, you bully others. Ace, who felt unparalleled grievance, muttered like this, and her cute and pitiful look made people want to stop. There's nothing I can do, who makes Ace so cute? Yayu said this with a smile, and immediately used the posture of a princess to hold the trembling girl who was kneeling on the ground in his arms. Leaning gently on Yayu's chest, the chill that penetrated his soul disappeared completely in an instant. Feeling the intoxicating warmth, Isai narrowed her eyes in enjoyment like a child. I'll be jealous if you do this. Riveria's voice sounded from the side, and Yayu showed a somewhat amused expression, and immediately handed Isai over to her. Take Ace and stay away for a little bit. I'm afraid I'll hurt you later. When Yayu said this, Riveria warned him a little worriedly. Don't overdo it. The implication is not to embarrass the Loki familia too much. Don't worry, I'm measured. Yayu said so softly, and then watched Riveria hug Ace and leave. Okay, let the rest of the guys come together, I'm in a hurry. Riveria, who was holding Isai but not far away, almost fell from the sky when she heard Yayu's arrogant words. So I told you not to go too far. Some looked back dumbfounded. At the same time, the remaining members of the Loki family were also frightened by Yayu's arrogance. It is true that Yayu defeated two LV6s, but there are hundreds of them here, and there are two LV6s, not only that, but there are also many LV5s. They couldn't help but wonder, is this young man a little too arrogant? Ha! This bastard actually dares to touch my Isai-chan. I'm going to kill you. Calm down Loki. Don't make trouble, you can't use divine power. The atmosphere on the 30th floor of the Tower of Babel was still very lively, but the gods were also looking forward to what would happen next. I admit that you are strong, Yayu, but one-on-one combat and team combat are two completely different concepts. You will pay the price for your arrogance. Findanner, the leader of the Loki familia, said this and immediately waved the spear in his hand. Comrades, come together, for the glory of Loki's family, we can only win and not lose. Following Findanner's roar, hundreds of adventurers above level 3 of Loki's family rushed towards Yayu, who was on the stage. Well done, then, the game begins again. With a ferocious smile on his lips, Yayu waved the ice crystal sword in his hand and immediately faced him without fear. The brutal battle lasted for unknown lengths of time, and the town that was originally as lively as celebrating a festival fell into a deathly silence at some point. Everyone fell into silence, looking at the back of the towering figure. The Loki Familia is the most powerful Familia in Aurario. This is a generally accepted fact, but today it was defeated by another Familia, a single member of the Familia. After today's battle, the names of Hestia Familia and Yayu will inevitably spread throughout the world. Does it look like I won? The opponents were not Isai and Reveria. Yayu, who could unscrupulously release the impulse in his body, showed a faint smile. He felt very comfortable, and the cold and bloodthirsty impulse in his body was completely released by him. However, the Loki Familia is not feeling very comfortable anymore. Most of the people in the Familia turned into ice sculptures, and more than half of them hugged each other and shivered. The only ones standing were the remaining two LV6 Findanner. And there's Gareth Landruck. However, the two of them have basically lost their combat effectiveness. At most, they can maintain their bodies from being completely frozen. Win? Ha 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 ha, death is your only destination, pay the price, Yayu. At this moment, a vicious voice suddenly rang out, and one of the several Loki Familia who had fallen not far from Yayu suddenly jumped up, and then rushed towards Yayu. Yayu still has an impression of him, Bird Raga, the guy who was severely humiliated by Yayu in the tavern. It's just LV5, Yayu didn't take it seriously. Just when Yayu raised his hand to freeze it, his brow suddenly jumped. Some kind of strange fluctuations spread from Bert's arms, carrying an unusually dangerous aura. What is that? Sacred fire. How the hell did he get the divine fire? Loki, who saw the scene through the mirror, screamed, and the word divine fire immediately caused a commotion in the hall. What is divine fire? It was a flame condensed by the god's original power, which was enough to destroy everything in the mortal world. No. Stop him quickly. Some gods shouted in fear, but it was too late. The ferocious-looking bird rushed towards Yayu with the burning divine fire in his arms. The power of the frost quickly dissipated after encountering the seemingly insipid flame. The moment his face showed a look of surprise, Bird had already arrived in front of him holding the divine fire. The next second the flame soared into the sky and exploded. Yayu. The entire Tower of Babel collapsed at this moment. Hestia, who couldn't care less about anything, resolutely used the power belonging to the gods, but everything was already too late. After the divine fire burned out, nothing was left. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 86. According to mysticism, outside this world, there is the apex of dimensionalism, force. Defined as the coordinate origin of all things, the vortex of origin where the long-cherished wish of all magicians lies is both the origin and the end of all things. It records everything that happens in this world and is the seat of God that created all things in this world. 200 years ago, someone tried to reach this outside the world. Einsborn, Macaulay, Tosaka. Known as the three founding families, what they aspire to is to reproduce the Holy Grail mentioned in countless legends. In order to summon the Holy Grail that can grant all wishes, magicians from the three families exchanged their secret techniques, and finally the Holy Grail, which can be called the Cauldron of Omnipotence, appeared. However, this Holy Grail can only grant one person's wish. When this fact emerged, the cooperative relationship immediately turned into a bloody battle. This is the beginning of the Holy Grail War. After that, every 60 years, the Holy Grail will reappear in the far eastern place Fuiuki where it was once summoned. The Holy Grail will then select 7 magicians who are qualified to possess it, and distribute part of their vast magic power to the 7, allowing them to summon heroic spirits called servants. Fight to the death to determine who is truly qualified to hold the Holy Grail. Early spring has passed and summer is approaching, but the place is still shrouded in pure white ice and snow. Einsborn is a mountain city forever shrouded in ice and snow. The people who live in this permanently frozen mountain town are one of the few who can maintain a history of more than 1,000 years without being divided into families or interacting with other magicians, and even the group consciousness that deteriorates in a 10-year cycle is controlled. Very good, the monster family that has never made any mistakes for such a long time can be said to have reached the realm of gods and demons. Although the Einsborn family is the founder of the Holy Grail War, it is somewhat ironic that this family has not won any victory in the past Holy Grail War. This kind of history is almost considered it's a mark of shame. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, the Fourth Holy Grail War was about to begin. And this time, the Einsborn family once again presented its trump card, which was the perfect artificial human that carried the container of the Holy Grail. Of course, artificial humans alone cannot take advantage of the Holy Grail War. The Einsborn family also needs a powerful magician. But what is a little embarrassing is that although the direct bloodline of the Einsborn family has not been cut off, their talents are not satisfactory. It can be said that except for the head of the family, Ubusticahade von Einsborn, there is actually no one. An accomplished magician. As the head of the family, Ubusticahade von Einsborn had no choice but to focus on foreign aid. A huge family that has been passed down for thousands of years actually needs outsiders to help it fight for the Holy Grail. I have to say that this is a sad thing. But there is no other way. In order to obtain the Holy Grail, any price is acceptable. Moreover, after finding a suitable magician, let him marry the android Iris Veal, who is his granddaughter, and join their Einsborn family. This way, outsiders will not laugh at it. As for whether the found magician agrees to marry into the family, there is absolutely no need to worry about this. Not to mention that Iris Veal, the container of the Holy Grail, is an artificial human modeled after the former Winter Maiden, and her beauty will definitely not disappoint. Being able to join the Einsborn family, a huge family that has been passed down for thousands of years, is also a great gift for those wandering magicians. Hayat already had a candidate in mind, a ruthless man known as the Magician Killer. Although he has a bad record and is hated by others, there is no doubt that such a person is very easy to control as a thug. In the forest of Einsborn, two girls wrapped tightly in their bodies were slowly moving forward in the snow. Behind them is an exaggeratedly large battle axe. It is obvious that these two girls are not the weak girls they appear to be. In front of these two expressionless girls, there was a woman with long hair as pure as snow and enchanting crimson eyes. Different from the tightly wrapped servant behind her, this woman was wearing a winter coat made of high-grade fur, and the expression on her face was much more vivid. However, although this woman looks mature and intellectual, she behaves like a child of several years old. In fact, not long had passed since she was born. It would not be a problem to say she was only a few years old. For the first time since her birth, Iris Veal was able to leave her room and see the outside world. Even though she was only in the forest near the Einsborn family castle, Iris Veal was still very excited. She ran along the snow like an innocent child, and then she tripped over something and fell to the ground. Ugh, it hurts, what is it? She rubbed her head in confusion and climbed up. Iris Veal curiously looked at the thing that tripped her in the snow. Hey, this is a person. Soon, Iris Veal discovered that this was not the same thing. Lying in the snow was a young man who seemed to be sleeping with his eyes tightly closed. Iris Veal's first reaction was to think that this was a guy who had frozen to death, but after touching the other person's nose and wrist, she found that he was still breathing. No, we have to take him back to the castle. Although I don't know why this boy entered the territory of the Einsborn family, it is obvious that if he continues to be left like this in the ice and snow, he will definitely freeze to death. With some difficulty, Iris Veal moved the body of the boy who fell in the snow. Although she was an android, compared to the powerful androids used to fight behind her, Iris Veal was more like a handless chicken. A girl of strength. Ugh, it's so heavy. You two, help me carry him back. After trying for a moment but still failing, Iris Veal waved her hand to direct the two androids behind her. The android who obeyed the order wordlessly picked up the boy in the snow, and immediately the group returned to Einsburn's castle along the same route. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 87. Yeah, you couldn't remember exactly what happened. He only remembered that the last scene in his mind was the flames soaring into the sky, and a heartbreaking and evil cry. Ah, I was a little careless, but at least I was lucky that I wasn't dead yet. Thinking this way, Yayu opened his eyes and saw a completely unfamiliar ceiling. The luxurious decoration in the room made Yayu slightly stunned. Among Orario, there should be no one else with such luxurious decoration besides the Loki Familia, right? Are you in the Loki Familia? Just as Yayu was thinking this, the door next to him was pushed open. A man and a woman walked into the house. The man looked to be 70 or 80 years old. His old appearance made people worry that he would be blown down by a gust of wind. As for women, Levi, Lee. The moment he saw the woman, Yayu muttered the name, but soon he shook his head and woke up. Although the temperament is very similar, it is obvious that the woman in front of her is not Riveria. Seeing Yayu calling out an unfamiliar name, the woman with long silver-white hair like moonlight also looked curious. You must know that besides her grandfather, Yayu was the second man she had seen. You're awake, young man. At first, Hayed was very surprised when he heard Iris Veal say that he had picked up a man in the woods. You must know that a barrier has been set up near Einsburn. Ordinary people cannot break in. Only magicians can come in. But even if he is a magician, if he destroys the barrier outside the forest, Hayed will find it immediately. Moreover, although Einsburn has declined, its prestige is still there. Which magician is so bold as to break into Einsburn? With such questions in mind, Hayed immediately followed Iris Veal to the room where Yayu was placed. The moment he saw Yayu, Hayed was frightened. Although Iris Veal couldn't see it, Hayed could feel the explosive magic power on Yayu. This is a magician, and an extremely powerful magician at that. But why did he appear in the land of Einsburn, and why was he in a coma? Who are you? Is this the Loki Familia? Looking at Hayed in front of him, Yayu frowned slightly and asked. Loki, Familia. Hayed opened his mouth slightly. Loki was the name of a god, and he knew this very well. But what does it mean to combine the name of a god with the title of a family? Gods, familiar. Seeing Hayed's dazed look, Yayu raised his eyebrows slightly, then took a deep breath and continued to ask. So, is this the Labyrinth City Orario? I'm sorry young man, I have never heard of what you are talking about. This is not the Labyrinth City Orario, this is Germany, the Einsburn family. The name that he had never heard of came out of Hayed's mouth, and Yayu couldn't help but lose consciousness. Germany, Einsburn. Have you come to another world? What happened in the end? Why did I come to another world? Seeing Yayu's appearance, Hayed was extremely surprised. If his guess was correct, the young man in front of him should be a visitor from another world. For a magician like him who has lived for who knows how many years, visitors from other worlds are not unacceptable. Even the heroic spirits summoned by the Holy Grail are in a sense visitors from other worlds, right? Young man, what are you going to do next? Seeing Yayu's silence, Hayed asked tentatively again. I don't know, but I must go back to Orario. There are people there who are worried about me, and there are people I care about. Yayu said this and stood up from the bed, as if he planned to leave here directly. With all due respect, young man, you are a magician, right? After listening to Hayed's words, Yayu stopped. He turned around and looked at the old man, waiting for him to finish what he had not finished. He is an old man, but he is also a magician. According to what I know, it is almost impossible to perform magic that can travel between two worlds. Hayat said and laughed. Of course it's not impossible. The legendary second magic can do this. But just like the characteristics of the second magic, its master has been traveling in parallel worlds, so it is almost impossible to find him thing. What do you want to say? What I want to say is, although I don't know how you came into this world, I guess that wasn't your original intention, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have been found unconscious in the ice and snow by my granddaughter. When Hayat said this, Yayu fell into silence. Although the situation in this world is not very clear, through the old man's description, it seems that this world is also a world with various strong people similar to Orario. At least in Orario, Yayu has not heard of anyone who can master the magic of freely traveling through the world. All those high-ranking gods are not included in it. Although we can't find a second magician to help you return to your own world, there is one more thing that can help you. Oh, what is that? Yayu became slightly interested, and his top priority now was to find a way to return to Orario. With the help of powerful people in this world, it is naturally much easier than trying to figure it out on your own. That thing is called the Holy Grail. Seeing Yayu's interested expression, Hayat grinned slightly and revealed an ugly smile. Why? Seeing her grandfather say this, Iris Veal on the side showed a somewhat puzzled expression. Didn't Grandpa say that the participant of the Einsburn Holy Grail War has already been chosen, and that person will be his husband? Although she was instilled with a lot of knowledge after her birth, it was still difficult for Iris Veal, who had the mind of a child of a few years old, to understand what a wife was. Although she knew her duties as a wife very clearly, the girl was more confused than shy about the duties that a wife should fulfill. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai. Chapter 88. After Hayat explained to Yayu what the Holy Grail was, Yayu was indeed moved. Based on the current situation, it seems that using the Holy Grail, the all-powerful cauldron, to make a wish to return to Orario is probably the best way. Apart from that, Yayu really couldn't figure out how to get himself back. As for the second magician that Hayat mentioned, let's not mention whether he can be found. Even if he is found, why would he help you for no reason? A strong person who can freely shuttle between the two worlds will definitely not be so easy to talk to. And even if others agree to help him, there is still a question mark as to whether he can return to his own world. After all, no one knows how far apart this world is from Orario. The only thing Yayu is worried about is, whether this Holy Grail is as magical as Hayat said and can really fulfill his wishes. But now there is no choice but to work hard for the Holy Grail. When will the Holy Grail War start, and what do I need to do? And, since the Holy Grail is the almighty cauldron that can fulfill all wishes, why don't you go and seize it yourself, instead of giving this opportunity to me, an outsider? Yayu looked at Hayat in front of him with a puzzled expression, while Hayat shook his head gently and gave the answer. The old man has been living for too long. Although the reserve of magic power is still strong, the decayed soul cannot attract the assistance of a powerful servant. Perhaps the reason why he is obsessed with the Holy Grail War is just because he is unwilling to do so. He is unwilling to be a hero. Einsburn, one of the three royal families, was the one who held the initial Holy Grail War and failed for so many years. It has been almost 200 years, and the Einsburn family has never won a victory. How sad is this? What I want is just a victory for the Einsburn family. I want witness the arrival of the Holy Grail and Einsburn with your own eyes before this remaining life disappears. Hayat said with great excitement. This old man in his dying years suddenly burst out with strength from nowhere. After all, next to Yayu, his already cloudy eyes were shining with light and heat. Yayu is no stranger to this kind of light. In Orario, the adventurers who fight desperately for the glory of their clan have this kind of light shining in their eyes. For the glory of the family, indeed, it is a powerful family that has been passed down for thousands of years, but it cannot even fulfill such a long-cherished wish. I understand, I will help you win the Holy Grail, in the name of the Einsborn family. Yeah, you said this, but Hayat shook his head gently. No, it's not like you said that you can just win the Holy Grail in the name of the Einsborn family. The other magicians will not recognize your identity as the master of the Einsborn family. So I hope you can marry my granddaughter Iris Veal and join our Einsborn family. As Hayat said this, Iris Veal lowered her head shyly, while Yayu had a troubled look on his face. He didn't quite understand what marriage was, but marrying another woman was something he couldn't accept. After all, the woman Yayu loved was Reveria. But, I already have someone I like in another world. Hey, isn't it normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines? With your strength, how can you only have one woman? Seeing Yayu's hesitation, Hayat said nonchalantly. Then it's settled. I will let you and Iris Veal choose a date to get married soon. Okay, Iris Veal, let's go first and don't disturb your future husband's rest. I understand, Grandpa. Lowering her head and letting out an inaudible sigh, before leaving, Iris Veal turned around and bowed slightly to Yayu with a beautiful smile. Then, Grandpa and I will go out first, Mr. Yayu. If you need anything, just call the maid. Were you forced? When Iris Veal was about to leave, Yayu's sudden words made the girl tremble. How could it be possible? I was just following Grandpa's request. So, will you marry me? Yayu asked again, but Iris Veal did not look back, because once she looked back, Yayu would notice the bitter expression on her face. Of course, a young and powerful magician like Mr. Yayu is naturally very popular with girls. I am very satisfied with Grandpa's arrangement. Ah, I understand. You should go first, Miss Iris Veal. Yayuquan could completely hear the reluctance in Iris Veal's words, but he didn't ask any more questions and remained silent. Then, see you later. Please have a good rest, Mr. Yayu. With such polite words, Iris Veal hurriedly left the room, leaving Yayu sitting alone on the bed in a daze. Holy Grail War. Sighing helplessly, according to Hayat, even if the Holy Grail War starts, it will be 10 years later, which means that he will have to stay in this world for at least 10 years and be married to other women for 10 years. It's not that he hates Iris Veal, on the contrary, Yayu sees something similar to Reveria in Iris Veal, which is also something that attracts him like a poppy. Yayu didn't know what this strange feeling was, but he just couldn't control the urge to get it. I'm really sorry for Reveria. There was a wry smile on the corner of his mouth. Although he initially said in front of Hayat that he already had a wife, Yayu said it with hesitation and in front of him, indicating that at that moment, Yayu almost agreed to win directly. Iris Veal's request. But there's nothing we can do about it, Reveria will definitely forgive me after she finds out, right? Yayu's words were a little forced. Although he still felt a little guilty in his heart, he had already planned to marry Iris Veal. But, there is still another problem before us, and that is Iris Veal's attitude. Originally, Yayu had no doubts about Hayat, but, the questions and answers he just had with Iris Veal made Yayu discover a lot of things. It seems, there is something wrong with this Hayat. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai. Chapter 89. Iris Veal followed Hayat and left the room, the girl's face still full of confusion. Grandpa, why do you say that? Hasn't it been determined that the person who will replace Einsborn in the battle is, that magician killer? Iris Veal asked. The girl knew her identity very well. She was just a tool that created the container that held the small Holy Grail, and then used it to win over powerful magicians for Einsborn. For magicians, women are not something worth pursuing. If they want a woman, they can get it no matter how beautiful it is. Magicians' pursuit of women is nothing more than a tool for reproducing offspring. In their eyes, finding a woman with pure blood and giving birth to a gifted child is the most important thing. As for love and family affection, how could such things exist in the hearts of magicians who are looking for the root? Emi Yakiritsugu is indeed a very suitable candidate. Although his talent as a magician is not high, he is ruthless and will do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. The Holy Grail War requires someone like him. Facing Yayu's completely different attitude in the room, Hayed said this in a cold tone. But Emi Yakiritsugu's strength is still a little too low after all. Even if he can summon powerful servants, his own magic power supply will still not be able to keep up. However, his own methods can make up for this a little. When there was no one to choose from, he was indeed the best choice, but now that I have another choice, it's an orthodox magician with powerful magic power, so I need to change my decision a little bit. But, won't Emi Yakiritsugu come to Einsborn today? Ah, yes, I am just waiting for his arrival. After all, there is still no way to determine the specific strength of Yayu, so it would be the best thing to ask Emi Yakiritsugu to help us confirm it. At that time, the losers will naturally be disqualified. I understand, Grandpa. Iris Veal lowered her head and said expressionlessly. Is it sad? Is it sad? There is no such emotion at all, because Iris Veal knows that this is the fate she needs to face. There are still 10 years left in the Holy Grail War. No matter who the winner is after 10 years, as the bearer of the little Holy Grail, she will inevitably have only one choice, death. The outcome has already been decided, so there is no need to care about it, right? When night fell, Yayu, led by the maid, came to the restaurant to have dinner with Iris Veal and Hayed. Although it was only a temporary verbal agreement, it seemed that Hayed had regarded Yayu as his grandson-in-law. Yayu nodded politely and immediately took his seat. The dinner with the seemingly harmonious family did not last long. Soon a maid came up and said a few words in Hayed's ear. Nodding slightly, Hayed looked at Yayu with a somewhat apologetic expression. I'm very sorry, Yayu, an uninvited guest is here. Oh, who is here? Yayu raised his eyebrows slightly, while Hayed smiled awkwardly and continued. You also know that in order to choose candidates for the Holy Grail War, Einsborn had to seek marriage from the magic world. Although I had removed the news of the marriage proposal not long ago, it seems that the people who got the news before still rushed over. It seems like you don't want to give up, right? When Hayed said this, Yayu nodded knowingly. He was not an idiot and naturally knew Hayed's purpose, which was nothing more than to test his own strength. Although this kind of behavior is understandable, it completely makes Yayu feel unfavorable. I understand. As the son-in-law of the Einsborn family, I will let those who spy on my woman know what the heaven and earth are. Yayu said this indifferently, and immediately stood up and left the living room. He has a good personality. This way, there is nothing to worry about. The next step is to see if he can get an advantage from the magician killer. After Yayu left the restaurant, a crystal ball appeared in Hayed's hand. The crystal ball showed a scene of a forest, and at this moment a man in a black trench coat was walking slowly carrying a box. The man's name is Emi Yakiritsugu, and he is known as the magician killer in the magic world. But such a title is not a compliment, on the contrary, it represents contempt for Emi Yakiritsugu. Because although countless magicians died at the hands of Emi Yakiritsugu, all of these magicians were killed by Emi Yakiritsugu using unorthodox methods due to carelessness. As long as the target is targeted by Emi Yakiritsugu, he will use all available methods to kill the target, whether it is a sniper in the dark or a bomb attack. It is precisely because of such despicable methods that Emi Yakiritsugu is shamed by the entire magic world. Even so, no one dared to attack Emi Yakiritsugu casually. After all, no one wanted to be thought about by such a madman all day long. In order to participate in the Holy Grail War and obtain the Holy Grail, Emi Yakiritsugu was the one Hayed chose to join the Einsborn family at the beginning. Although his reputation is a little worse, Emi Yakiritsugu's strength is there. And a guy like this is much easier to control than those arrogant magicians. At this moment, Emi Yakiritsugu was looking around with a confused expression. He obviously arrived at the Einsborn family's residence as agreed, but why didn't anyone come to receive him? Just as he was thinking strangely, a sound broke through the air. Emi Yakiritsugu reacted in an instant and quickly took a few steps back, and immediately an ice pick fell at his feet. "A magician, why do you want to attack me?" Feeling a little surprised, Emi Yakiritsugu raised his head, and what he saw was a young man walking through the white snow. There was no expression on the young man's face. He raised one of his hands, and there were sharp ice picks suspended in his palm. "Are you, the magician who plans to marry into the Einsborn family?" "Yes, I am Kiritsugu Emi Ya." "Who are you from the Einsborn family, and what does this mean?" Emi Yakiritsugu, who instinctively sensed the threat, put his palm on his box, intending to open it at any time. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai. Chapter 90. Please leave here. Einsborn will be fought by me. You have been disqualified. Looking at Emi Yakiritsugu standing in front of him, "Yeah, you said so coldly," the latter frowned slightly, but did not leave just like that. "Is this what Mr. Hayed meant? Why did you suddenly change your mind? Didn't you already agree that I would replace Einsborn in the battle?" Emi Yakiritsugu's palm was still on his suitcase. He stared at Yayu with a vigilant expression. He sensed an unparalleled sense of danger in the man in front of him. He had experienced a similar feeling many times. All the magicians who died at the hands of Emi Yakiritsugu were famous, otherwise they would not be wanted and hunted by the Magic Association. Although he was wary, Emi Yakiritsugu was not afraid of Yayu. In his opinion, it would be very simple to assassinate this young magician. What on earth is Hayed thinking? Does he actually want a child like this to participate in the Holy Grail War? Are you kidding me? I have a reason why I have to go to the Holy Grail. Is it nonsense for a child like this to participate in the Holy Grail War? Emi Yakiritsugu thought so in his heart, but it was obvious that Yayu had no intention of explaining to him. When he found out that Emi Yakiritsugu had no intention of leaving, he directly chose to take action. There was no intention to kill the opponent, but it was an attack with a hint of warning. An ice pick suspended in Yayu's palm changed its direction and immediately shot straight towards Emi Yakiritsugu. Emi Yakiritsugu frowned slightly, and then his body moved to one side at an incredible speed, and he immediately avoided the ice cone shot by Yayu. And at the moment when he was dodging, he also opened the small box he had been carrying and took out a folded machine gun from it. When Yayu was still curious about how Emi Yakiritsugu avoided his attack, the other party took out a machine gun, leaving Yayu slightly stunned. "Isn't this guy a magician? Why are you still using thermal weapons?" Strangely enough, although he had never seen a weapon like a machine gun in Orario, Yayu knew its use after Emi Yakiritsugu took out that thing. At the same time, I also find it a bit funny. What role can this thing play in a magician's battle? While Yayu was thinking this, Emi Yakiritsugu picked up the machine gun and fired at Yayu while keeping moving. Yayu completely ignored this seemingly ridiculous attack. The power of frost formed a crystal shield in front of him, blocking all Emi Yakiritsugu's bullets. "Okay, if you only have this trick, don't embarrass yourself here anymore. The Holy Grail War is not a child's play." What made Emi Yakiritsugu look depressed was that what he originally wanted to say was said by the other party. The most important thing was that he had no way to refute it. But there was nothing he could do about it. After all, he had absolutely no way to fight head-on. Emi Yakiritsugu believed that if he wanted to kill the boy in front of him, he had many ways, but in the current situation of head-on conflict, he would not be his opponent no matter what. Of course, It doesn't mean that there is no chance of winning, as long as you use your own magic gift and use that thing. However, it was obvious that Emi Yakiritsugu would not waste such a precious thing in vain, and he had no reason to kill the boy in front of him. Although Emi Yakiritsugu was ruthless, he would not kill innocent people without any reason. If he killed the boy in front of him in order to gain the qualification to represent Einsborn in participating in the Holy Grail War, then it would completely defeat his purpose of participating in the Holy Grail War. If the Holy Grail War is imminent and there is no other way to participate, Emi Yakiritsugu may choose to do so. But there are still 10 years left before the Holy Grail War. There are too many preparations that can be made, and there is no need to tie the Einsborn family to death. Since Einsborn's side had already been attacked first, he had to find another way to deal with it. Since you know that the Holy Grail War is not a child's play, are you prepared to be killed? What kind of wish do you choose? Although he was about to give up, at the end of the day, Kiritsugu still wanted to be sure and confirm why this boy wanted to participate in the dangerous Holy Grail War. Emi Yakiritsugu knew better than anyone what the Holy Grail War meant. No matter how powerful the magician is, he is no different from ordinary people in this death game of 7 people. For heroic spirits, the human body is too fragile and can be destroyed easily. My wish, I just want to go home. Please go and don't step into Einsborn again. Saying this, Yayu turned around and left, leaving Emi Yakiritsugu standing alone in the ice and snow. Go home. If this is just your wish, you are not aware enough. If you do this, you will definitely die in this Holy Grail War. After saying these words, Emi Yakiritsugu immediately packed up his weapons and left without any regrets. It seemed like he had never been interested in Einsborn or Irisveal. Emi Yakiritsugu didn't know what Irisveal looked like, and he had never been interested in the kind of woman he wanted to marry. His purpose was simply to gain recognition from the Einsborn family and become a contestant of their family. If it fails now, then just abandon Einsborn quickly and find other means to intervene in this Holy Grail War. On the other side, in the restaurant of Einsborn Castle, Hayed, who saw all this through the crystal ball, sighed slightly. Although I got what I wanted, I saw Yayu and Emi Yakiritsugu fighting, but the two people just had a small fight, and it was completely impossible to tell who was stronger. On the surface, it seems that Yayu has the absolute advantage, but as a magician killer, Emi Yakiritsugu has not used any of his trump cards. Hayed would not believe that the famous magician killer was just a guy carrying ridiculous hot weapons to fight magicians. Forget it, the master is only secondary anyway. The protagonist of the Holy Grail War will always be the servant. In comparison, Yayu, who has a huge magic power reserve, is a more suitable candidate. Hayed said this, and Irisveal on the other side just lowered her head slightly, not knowing what she was thinking.